If you're the parent of a child with pathological demand avoidance or PDA, it might feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells. Perhaps it feels like every request you make is met with resistance, meltdowns, or avoidance. But what if I told you PDA isn't a disorder? It's actually a highly specialized way of thinking. One that, if understood correctly, can actually be a superpower for your child. So stay with me, because in this video we're going to completely reframe how you see PDA using groundbreaking insights from systemizing cognitive styles, personality theory, and a new understanding of autism itself. PDA is often described as a profile within the autism spectrum, where individuals intensely resist demands or expectations. But here's the key. This isn't simply defiance or oppositional behavior. It's actually a highly advanced cognitive filtering system. PDA individuals don't just say no for the sake of it. They resist because they're running an internalized system check on every demand placed upon them. If it doesn't align with their internal logic, autonomy, or emotional safety, they instinctively reject it. This isn't about being difficult, it's about preserving cognitive integrity. So what if instead of seeing PDA as a flaw, we actually saw it as a strength that needs guidance? Interestingly, PDA has never been conclusively established as a possessible entity, just like every single one of the 297 mental disorders listed in the diagnostic manuals. PDA is mainly diagnosed in the UK and to a certain extent in Australia, showing that it is just a subjectively created, perception-based entity created by the mental health establishment, rather than being an objective, scientifically established, possessible entity. You cannot find PDA in any part of the body with any kind of diagnostic equipment. In reality, all of the behaviors and traits associated with PDA can be found to varying degrees in the general population. PDA is simply an intensified version of general teenage rebellion, magnified by a systemizing cognitive style. The root cause of it all, however, is unresolved emotional trauma. When trauma disrupts emotional expression and partially or completely blocks access to the socialization process, then a systemizing cognitive style begins to develop. This happens because systemizers, lacking an intuitive way of acquiring information from others, must build their own internal guidance systems in isolation. Without access to an information transference system like socialization, they must rely exclusively upon their own internal logic to navigate the world. While their guidance systems may be logic-based, their logic can still be flawed. However, because this hybrid-built guidance system is all they have for making sense of reality, they will fiercely resist any externally imposed structures that might threaten it. Psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen introduced the idea of systemizing and empathizing cognitive styles. Systemizers, like many autistic individuals, see the world through patterns, systems, logic, and structures. PDA individuals take this even further. They don't just analyze things like mechanical systems, they analyze control structures, authority, rules, and expectations. If something doesn't fit with their internal logic, they simply reject it. This means that PDA kids are not rebellious just for the sake of it. They are deeply logical about what they accept or reject. This is why typical parenting strategies like punishment or reward systems often fail. They're not defying you, they simply don't see the demand as logically valid. Now let's take this a step further. PDA traits align closely with certain Myers-Briggs personality types. The types most PDA aligned are those that thrive on autonomy and logical consistency, including INTP, which is what I am, the logician, who will only accept rules if they are logically flawless. INTJ, the architect, who rejects control unless it aligns with their vision. ISTP, the virtuoso, who prefers self-directed learning over imposed rules. ENTP, the debater, who challenges rules rather than obeying them blindly. INFJ, the advocate, who rejects rules that feel morally wrong. And ISTJ, the inspector, who only follows consistent rules and resists illogical ones. Now, funnily enough, these personality types are also the most aligned with the systemizing cognitive style. This means that PDA isn't just some sort of disorder, it's actually a distinct cognitive profile. It's a highly specialized way of thinking that requires a different approach from parents. Now here's where things get tricky. PDA children often get caught in what we call the PDA trap, a cycle of extreme demand avoidance. And why? Because they associate external demands with a loss of autonomy and emotional distress. It isn't just about the demand itself, it's about the emotional distress that may come with compliance. When an externally imposed structure is presented, it may bring them into contact with their unresolved emotional triggers. This is why they react so strongly, because compliance isn't just about following an instruction, it's about facing the emotional distress that the structure represents. So how do we break this cycle? Well, the key to dissolving the negative effects of PDA is addressing the root cause, the negative emotions stored in unresolved negative memories. However, PDA individuals may initially reject the idea of emotional healing because it represents an externally imposed structure. This resistance makes it crucial for parents to focus on their own emotional healing first. Many PDA children are highly perceptive on an energetic level and will unconsciously detect any unresolved emotions in a parent who is trying to suggest healing for them. If a parent hasn't addressed their own emotional wounds, the child will sense this incongruence and reject any attempts at intervention. By prioritizing their own healing, parents naturally shift the family dynamic, creating a more emotionally stable environment. Once healed, they'll be in a much better position to understand their child's needs and cognitive style. While the parent is healing, they can begin implementing strategies to start breaking the cycle of demand avoidance and help their child to feel more in control. This gradual approach allows the child to experience new structures in a way that feels safe rather than imposed. The key is not to force compliance, but rather to help your child refine and expand their internal guidance system. Here's how. Offer choices rather than demands. For example, would you like to do your homework before or after dinner? Frame tasks as self-directed rather than imposed. For example, I could really use your help with this. How do you think we should do it? Use logic-based reasoning rather than emotional pressure. For example, this will help you get what you want in the long run. Teach autonomy-building strategies to help them feel more in control. As trust builds and they sense emotional stability in their environment, they may become more open to the idea of emotional healing themselves. Without dealing with these underlying emotional wounds, any externally imposed structures will be categorically rejected. Negative emotional triggers activate the body's fight or flight response, making the rejection of imposed structures a survival mechanism. This means that no amount of externally imposed rationality will override this deeply ingrained defense response. Techniques such as fast EFT and my ultimate divergence healing method have proven highly effective in clearing these emotional blocks, allowing individuals to disengage from avoidance loops and become more receptive to external structures in a way that feels safe and aligned with their internal logic. As healing progresses, remarkable abilities may begin to emerge. With the survival mechanism no longer in control, PDA individuals may develop advanced pattern recognition, high-level system thinking, deep emotional intelligence, and enhanced intuition. Their natural resistance to imposed structures can transform into extraordinary problem-solving and leadership abilities. Many may develop highly creative and unconventional thinking, allowing them to pioneer innovative ideas. Others may experience a harmonized mind-body connection, reducing stress and allowing them to enter deep states of focus and flow. But perhaps most importantly, their unique perspective can enable them to become transformative leaders, reshaping outdated societal norms in favor of more authentic and functional systems. Now parents, I want you to take a deep breath and hear this. Your child is not broken, they're not defiant, and they're not trying to make life hard for you. They're just wired differently. And when we stop trying to force compliance and instead work with their internal system, we unlock their potential. Many of the greatest thinkers in history, Einstein, Tesla, and Da Vinci, all fiercely rejected imposed structures and carved their own paths. Your child might just be one of them. They are not a problem to be fixed. They are a highly unique individual who, with the right guidance, can absolutely thrive on their own terms. And you as a parent have the power to help them do just that. Together we can create a world where PDA children are empowered, understood, and given the right tools they need to succeed. Now, for those of you who want to explore further how healing trauma can eliminate practically all of the symptoms associated with autism, then check out this video up here.